Okay. So first one was establishing what is called as the Anubandha Chatushtayam, which includes four components of one, who is the eligible aspirant, the adhikari, what is the subject that is being discussed, Vishaya, what is the sambandha, what is the relationship between the subject which is being discussed and the source of the information, which is Upanishad in this context. And the fourth is prayojanam, the benefit out of doing this study. So you've done that, and the next chapter is the most important to understand the creative aspect of this universe, creation of the universe, and the details of it, the cosmology that you can say. And the third chapter would be the what is called as desuperimposition in English, but it is Adhyaropa and what is it? Sorry, just a minute. Adhyaropa and Apavada. So that's called Apavada. So desuperimposition is called Apavada. Adhyaropa is the superimposition and Apavada is the desuperimposition. What is this Adhyaropa and Apavada? So essentially what Vedanta is saying is that we have some important terms to look at. One is the Atman, the Brahman, which is the transcendental consciousness, which is the Sat Chit Ananda, the one which is of absolute existence, the pure intelligence, and the bliss as well. Then you have what is called as Prakriti. The similarity between Prakriti and the Brahman is that they both are anadi or beginningless. And when they both come in contact with each other, the Prakriti is also called ignorance, or here it is Ajnana. Ajnana is the ignorance. And when Ajnana is superimposed upon the absolute consciousness, so the way examples are given is, for instance, you have a glass of water which is quite colorless, it's colorless, and then behind it you put some object which has a color. As soon as you put the object, the water looks colored. And for us, if we are not aware that there are two things, one behind the other, we assume that the water is in fact colored. So we assume that that is the actual true form. But that is our ignorance. We have, out of our ignorance, attributed this color to a colorless form. That is the superimposition. Desuperimposition is when we have gained the knowledge that, oh, after all, this is not the true color. It is something, it is a color, it is a quality of something else which seems to be giving its quality to this quality less kind of an entity. So I need to remove those two. So I remove that colored object behind the glass, and then I see the colorless water very clearly. And that would be the desuperimposition. Having gained the knowledge, I am now able to see the true reality and let go of the false reality. So this superimposition is being discussed right now. What have we done so far? Asarpabhutayam rajjau sarparopavat vastuni avastu aropaha. This is called adhyaropaha. So a rope which doesn't actually have a quality of a snake in it is being given this quality that it's a snake because of the association with the ignorance. Okay, so this rope is not being seen as a rope, but is seen as a snake, although it never had a quality of snake in it to begin with. So just as that happens, vastu and avastu, that is explained later on. In a vastu, the one which is actual reality, due to this similar kind of adhyaropa superimposition, an avastu emerges out of it as if it has given rise to an avastu, as if, but it's not a true evolution. It is an as if evolution. It is a mistaken identity. So that is called adhyaropa. So definition of adhyaropa was given in the first text. The second text is about vastu and avastu. Yes, Karanji?
This about the rope and the snake, that it might be a rope, that it's not a snake. It's really a rope, but people believe it's a snake. That once I remember there was something that it said something might not be real or true, but if people believe it is real or true, it becomes real or true and because of its consequences. So if people really believe that the rope is a snake, and then they run away and they don't go to that place and so on, it's like they're creating a reality from something that isn't real, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so is this from a particular school or is this your observation? What is it?
No, it's something when I was studying philosophy a long time ago. They said if people believe that something is true, it becomes true as a result of their actions and their consequences.
So this is from modern philosophy, you mean?
Yeah, it's from modern philosophy.
Yeah, okay. Sounds very similar. But
sounds similar.
A little more, which is that you can actually create a new reality. So the new reality is a reality too, is what I'm assuming, what it means.
So the new reality is a reality.
Unlike what we are hearing here, it is an attribution. It is an as if kind of a reality, but it is not a true reality. You see the difference?
No. That is a reality, but it's
the rope
there's only one true
the
reality.
rope was always a rope.
The rope was always a rope, yeah.
It never had anything to do with the snake. But because it was dark, for instance, that's another example given. So if it, because it was dark, it looked like a snake.
Yeah.
And I assumed it to be a snake. But snake is never a reality. It was never there in the first place. But how do I know it was never there in the first place? I may be living in this illusion that the snake is real. But once I switch on the light or I go near to it, then I realize that that's not the snake. So that false reality has disappeared. So therefore, that is not a reality to begin with. And it was proven through the knowledge that it was never a reality anyway. So this is what is apavada, the D superimposition. So what you're basically saying is, I'm sure there may be other schools of philosophy which accept, in fact, I think Swami Sarvapriyananda says this as well. Some of the ancient schools of darshanas, philosophies, have indeed expressed that it is not a mystical kind of a delusion. The creation actually does come into existence. And that is according to Vaiseshika Darshana and Nyaya Darshana is what Swami Sarvapriyananda says. So different schools may actually come up with their own kind of interpretations of it. As of Vedantasara, this is what they maintain. Okay. So Vastu is Satchitanandam Advayam Brahma. So what is a Vastu and what is a Avastu? Vastu is that thing which is the real thing. And what is it? It is the Brahman. Advayam, it doesn't have a second. And it is the Sat, which is the absolute existence. Chit, which is the pure intelligence, or all-knowing, we can say all-knowing, and Anandam, which is the eternal bliss. Whereas Ajnana Adi, beginning from the Ajnana, the very initial state of the ignorance which led to this entire creation onwards, until Sakala Jada Samuhaha, everything inert that has been created, every inert substance that has been created thereafter, until the last that was created, everything else is avastu, or not a real thing. So those are the definitions given there. Then we have seen Ajnanam tu Sad Asadbhyam Anirvachaniyam Trigunatmakam Jnana Virodhi Bhavarupam Yat Kinchit iti Vadanti Ahamagnaha इत्यादि अनुभवात् देवात्मशक्तिं स्वगुणैर्निगूढाम् इत्यादि श्रुतेश्च. So what is Ajnanam? He is further giving a little more of a detail. Sat Asat Bhyam. Sat basically is pure existence. Asat means complete non-existence. It is never to be considered possible to exist. Like examples, we already discussed a square circle. Square circle doesn't exist. So, Sat Asadbhyam Anirvachaniyam. So, beyond these two, it is not neither the pure existence, absolute existence, nor the pure or absolute non-existence. It is something else, which is coming into being as a false implication or false interpretation of the absolute existence. Anirvachaniyam. So therefore, it is not something that can be easily described. But it is Trigunatmakam. It has three gunas, which is the Sattva, Rajas, Tamo guna, the building blocks. Now, one may interestingly ask, this is where a debate could be. How can misinterpreted false implication have these three gunas? Where did that number come from? I guess that is where one may have to differ in terms of the cosmic creation, if it is real or if it is imaginary. But that discussion set aside. So this one is this Ajnana, the ignorance is Trigunatmakam. It has the three gunas. Then it is Jnana Virodhi. It is opposite. It is an opponent to the Jnana. When I want to gain knowledge, it keeps me busy in this state of Ajnana, this ignorance. That's the kind of power it has. Bhava Rupam, it has definite attributes to it. Yat Kinchit, whatever it may be, iti vadanti aham ajnaha. For instance, it says, a person would say, I am ignorant. When somebody says, I am ignorant, he is actually pointing out to something which is there. So there is ignorance, is what he's saying. So therefore, there is a positive attribute to it. It's not a non-existential state. It is an existing state, but in a false way. Even then, so it is existing. Aham ajnaha ityadi anubhavat. From these kind of experiences, we know that for surely there is something called as ajnana or ignorance. And I think we will go on to the next, which is the page 40. Idam ajnanam samashti vyashtya abhiprayena ekam anekam iti cha vyavahriyate. Idam ajnanam, this ignorance is of two types. What is samashti, which is an aggregate, and another is vyashti, which is an individual entity. And we will read through each one of them later on. Samashti vyashti abhiprayena ekam anekam iti cha vyavahriyate. So when it is a collective ignorance, it is one. When it is a vyashti or individual ignorance of many, multiples of it, it is multiple. So that's as much as is said here. Now, we'll look at the first aspect, which is the samashti ajnana, or the aggregate ignorance, or the collective ignorance which applies to the entire creation. Individual ignorance applies to each individual person like me, you, and anybody else. तथा हि यथा वृक्षाणां समष्टि अभिप्रायेण वनमित्येकत्व व्यपदेशः यथा वा जलानां समष्ट्यभिप्रायेण जलाशय इति तथा नानात्वेन प्रतिभासमानानां जीवगता अज्ञानानां समष्ट्यभिप्रायेण तत् एकत्व व्यपदेशः अजामेकाम् इत्यादि श्रुतेः. So samashti, the aggregate, is being described here. Tatahi, thereafter. Yatha, just as. Vrikshanam samashti abhiprayena, the collective aggregate of the trees. Vrikshanam samashti abhiprayena. Vanam iti ekatvam upadeshaha. So a collective, the aggregate of all these individual trees put together, we give it a name called vanam, or forest. We give it a name. Whether we give it a name or not, it looks like one entity. Like, for instance, a collection of houses, you name it as a colony. Rather than saying series of houses, we call it a colony. Similarly, a collection of trees is being given a name called vanam, because it looks like one entity there. Ekatva vyapadeshaha yathava jalanam samashtya viprayena jalashayaha. Similarly, all the drops of water put together makes it a water body, a reservoir, a lake, and so on. Tatha nanatvena pratibhasamananam. Similarly, just as there are individual kind of specks of this consciousness in association with the ignorance, the Brahman in association with the Ajnana. What is it leading to? It is leading to the collective appears to be a samashti. It's not just appears, it is a collective ignorance. So nanatvam is multiples of it. Pratibhasamananam, of course, we'll keep hearing it is only an as if experience, not to be taken literally, not to be taken that it is truly existing. So we keep on hearing pratibhasamananam as if they exist. Jivagata ajnana samashti viprayena tat ekatva vyapadeshaha. So therefore, the collective of it is being discussed here. And then we completed last week. We completed last week with this particular shloka, text. Iyam samashtihi. No, here iyam samashti. Iyam samashtihi utkrishta upadhitaya vishuddha sattva pradhana. An important distinction between the aggregate ignorance and the individual ignorance. When we call aggregate ignorance, we are not just leaving it at a state of ignorance. We have already kind of started seeing the interplay, the connection, the association between the pure intelligence, the consciousness, already coming into play, already coming into having been associated with the ignorance, it's come into play to manifest whatever is part of the creation. So we are, in effect, we are talking about the consciousness and not necessarily the ignorance. But we can't call it consciousness mainly because it is kind of as if, again, we come back to the as ifness. So because it is an as if thing that happened because of the ignorance. So naturally, they will start giving names to these entities. So this entity, when the pure absolute existence, which is nameless, formless, attributeless, which pervades everything that you can think of. And because it is now being confined to a space, because it has been associated with the ignorance, it's going to be given a name, which we will see later on. But that has an important distinct difference from the individual kind of ignorances, because it says here Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana, because of its nature of being pure absolute Brahman, it is full of, or it is the best form of Sattva Guna. Among the three gunas, Sattva is obviously going to be the one which is most peaceful, serene, kind of more in touch with spirituality and so on. So Sattva. So Vishuddha Sattva, which is pure Sattvic state. Okay, so this Utkrishta Upadi, Utkrishta means the best Upadi, Utkrishta Upaditaya, having been associated with the best of it, best of the ignorance. What is written here in English? This aggregate of ignorance on account of its appearing associated with perfection has a preponderance of pure Sattva. Okay, whichever way we look at it. Sattva is obviously the guna of the ignorance and not of the Brahman. Okay. Okay, so next we will we're going to go ahead. Etat upahitam chaitanyam sarvajñatva sarveshwaratva sarvaniyantrittattvadi gunakam avyaktam antaryami jagat karanam ishvara iti cha vyapadishyate sakala ajnanavabhasakatvat यह सर्वज्ञः सर्ववित् iti shrutehe. So there is a name being now given here, and it is the Ishvara. This Brahman, the absolute intelligence, attributeless, formless, nameless, whatever it is, now that it has come into association with the Maya, Prakriti, or Ajnana, or Avidya, that particular entity is being given the name Ishvara. Okay. What kind of qualities does this Ishvara have? Etat upahitam, in this way, having been associated, etat upahitam chaitanyam, that kind of radiance, it has the quality of sarvajñatvam, all-knowing, sarveshwaratvam, being the Lord of everything, sarvaniyantritvam, controller of everything, adi gunakam, so all these with these kind of qualities, and then avyaktam. Vyaktam would mean something which we can arrive at having used certain measurable instruments. It could be our senses or it could be our mind, whatever the measures. If something is kind of quantifiable or describable through those, then it is considered vyaktam or manifest. Avyaktam naturally is therefore beyond comprehension through these senses or organs of perception. Antaryami, the one which resides in all the living beings. Well, living, non-living, doesn't matter. It resides in everything. Antaryami, the inner guide. That is the Jagat Karanam. It is also the reason why this entire universe has come into creation. Therefore, called Ishvara iti. Cha Vyapadishyate. Therefore, this is how it is kind of understood. Sakala Ajnana Avabhasakatvat. It also has this ability to give radiance. Earlier we were talking about radiance. It gives radiance to this so-called ignorance. When we say so-called ignorance, it is jada padartha or inert substance. Like say for instance a fan which is created out of material, but it cannot function unless there is electricity flowing through it. It is pointless. You will even discard it. You won't even use that fan anymore, would you? Even though it may be the most expensive thing that you have bought, even though it may look so beautiful, what's the use of having it if it is a hot, humid kind of situation there and you can't use it? So it is given a purpose with this electricity. Similarly, this jada padartha or inert matter, how beautiful it may have been created, it is given life through this Chaitanya or the Brahman. So that is the ability, that is the Ishvara. Ishvara is able to give that radiance to this inert matter. Yaha sarvajnaha sarvavet. So therefore, this Ishvara is sarvajnaha, all-knowing, sarvavet, all, basically it's all-knowing, according to Mandukya Upanishad. Okay, so this Ishvara is being referred to as the aggregate or the universal consciousness, only confined to the universe, or only confined to the created space. That which is beyond created space and therefore is an unlimited consciousness is called Brahman. Now, once that same Brahman is being confined to this created space, it is being called Ishvara. Okay. Then we will move to the next one, which is Ishvarasya iyam samashtihi akhila karanatvat karanashariram ananda prachuratvat koshavat achhadanatvat achhadakatvat cha anandamaya koshaha sarvoparamatvat sushuptihi iti eva stula sukshma prapancha layasthanam iti cha uchyate. Again, lot of important stuff being described here. So we've already seen what are those kind of attributes of Ishvara. Not just that, Ishvarasya iyam samashtihi, this aggregate of the Ishvara, aggregate ignorance of the Ishvara, it is able to lead to what is called as Karana Sharira, or it's also called Karana Sharira because it leads to the causality of the creation. It is the reason why the entire creation has come into operation. Therefore, it is, if it is to be seen as a body, it is a causal body. The body which has led to the creation of the entire universe. So it has all the kind of programming details in it. So that is the Akhila Karanatvat Karana Shariram. Similarly, it also has another name called Anandamaya Koshaha. Now there are Pancha Kosha, as we need to know. So starting from the physical body that you see, this is the Anandamaya Kosha, right? Sorry, Annamaya Kosha. So you have Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya Koshas. 5 sheets. Just as a human us has 5 sheets, similarly the cosmos or the universe also has 5 sheets. For instance, the very earth that is being seen through these 5 sense organs is the Annamaya Kosha. And it goes beyond Pranamaya Kosha, which is the life. Life is what is included in that particular sheath. Then you have Manomaya Kosha, which is supposed to be the mind sheath. And then you have the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the intellect sheath. And then you have the Anandamaya Kosha, which is the blissful state of the cosmic, the Ishvara. So this is how they are being described. So Anandamaya Kosha, why is it called Anandamaya Kosha? Because Ananda Prachuratvat, it is on account of being full of bliss. Then it is called Kosha because there is this covering. What is being covered? Naturally, the cover is basically here the ignorance, the Maya, the Prakriti, the Avidya, whatever you may name it. So therefore, it's a sheath. So that is the second name. It has Anandamaya Kosha. Then there is a third name called Sushupti. So Sushupti is a dreamless sleep state or cosmic sleep, is as is being written here, for instance. What is the reason why it is being called Sushupti? It seems because Sarva Uparamatvat. Earlier we may have seen Uparamanam as a word in the very first chapter. In what context? In the context of Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. If you remember. In those, Shama is the restraint of the mind. Dhamma is the restraint of the sense organs. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. Uparati is the withdrawal. You're actually withdrawing those already restrained ones. You're withdrawing them from any information that is being fed to it. So Uparati is that word, withdrawal. So the same word, withdrawal. What is being withdrawn into this this state? When eventually there is involution of the cosmos. When the entire creation being cyclical in nature, it has a srishti, it has come into origin. It has a sthiti, which is it carries on for a while, and then there is the sthiti, which is the involution or dissolution, dissolving. I don't think it'll be the right word. Let me say involution is the best way. So when it happens in that way, what happens is everything is withdrawn back into that state. Everything that was created has all come back into this state. So sthula sukshma prapancha layasthanam, the gross universe and the subtle universe, layasthanam, for it to dissolve back. Therefore, it is also being called as Sushupti. So these are the 3 names being given. First one is Karana Shariram. Second is Anandamaya Kosha. Third is Sushupti. Okay. We'll just do one more and I'll take questions if any. यथावनस्य व्यष्ट्यभिप्रायेण वृक्षाः इत्यनेकत्व व्यपदेशः यथा वा जलाशयस्य व्यष्ट्यभिप्रायेण जलानि इति तथा अज्ञानस्य व्यष्ट्यभिप्रायेण तद् अनेकत्व व्यपदेशः इन्द्रः मायाभिः पुरुरूप ईयते पुरुरूप ईयते इति पुरुरूप ईयते इति इत्यादि श्रुतेः. So we'll see a little bit of this explanation here, which is वनस्य व्यष्टिः अभिप्रायेण वृक्षाः इति अनेकत्व व्यपदेशः यथा वा जलाशयस्य जलानिति यथा तथा अज्ञानस्य व्यष्टि अभिप्रायेण. I think we have already seen this earlier, but it is still being mentioned. In what way? Earlier we were saying that the collective trees, the aggregate of the trees, we are giving a name vanam, or the forest. So that same vanam, the forest, vanasya vyashti abhiprayena, if that same forest is now not being seen as a single entity, but is now being seen as a collection of individual units of trees, then what happens? We are calling them trees, vrikshaha iti aneka vyapadeshaha. So multiples of the same trees are being seen. Similarly, just like how a water body, jalashayah, jalashayasya, of the water body, vyashti abhiprayana, now individual droplets are being counted separately. And we are calling it jalani, waters. Similarly, this collective ajnana from the Ishvara, now if it is being seen as individual units, tada ajnanasya vyashti abhiprayena, of this ignorance, now seen as individual entities, tada anekatva vyapadeshaha. Now we will then be calling it multiples, anekatva vyapadeshaha. An example being given as a quoting, a reference from Rigveda, Indraha Mayabhihi Pururupa Iyate. So Pururupa here has been called as many forms. Of course, Rigvedic Sanskrit is not always easy to understand. Indraha Mayabhihi, with Mayabhihi is in plural here. Mayabhihi means many mayas. That is exact direct translation of that Mayabhihi. So this Indra, the Lord Indra, the god Indra, he through various kinds of Maya, Pururupa Iyate, he is actually manifesting into many forms. So this is evidence to include in this particular context in Vedantasara to say that similarly, the collective ignorance or the samashti ajnanam or the Ishvara, or the collective ajnanam, samashti ajnanam, also manifests as vyashti ajnanam, the individual units. And that will be seen next to indicate the individual units like us and what are the qualities that it brings in us. That we will come to from the next text onwards. Any questions so far? Yeah, Karanji. Karanji, you have a question, do you?
Yeah, well, more like when you said that when somebody says, I am ignorant, but by virtue of the fact that they said I'm ignorant, it means they must have some knowledge because they know there is something to learn. So that suggests they are not actually ignorant. It suggests maybe they're an aspirant or.
Yeah, that's true. So there are two aspects to it. One, the very word itself that is being quoted here earlier, which is that the very state of being ignorant, which means it is a positive attribute. Ignorance is a state. Ignorance itself is a state. Of course, as you rightly said, when he realizes he is ignorant, there must be some knowledge that he is not aware of. So even that is existing if that is the case. So there is a knowledge which is existing. And so both two have come out of this very one word. One, that there is knowledge, and second, there is a state of not knowing that knowledge. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I'll proceed then. अत्र व्यस्तसमस्त व्यापित्वेन व्यष्टि समष्टि समष्टिता व्यपदेशः. Nothing much here. Basically, he's concluding or summarizing that understanding or the idea of individual and the aggregate. When something manifests from an individual point of view, we are giving it a name called Vyashti. When something is being seen from a collective or aggregate point of view, we are giving it a name called Samashti. That is all being said here. Now we move on to the Vyashti or the individual ignorance. Earlier we have seen the cosmic unit of ignorance. Now we see the individual units of ignorance. Iyam Vyashtihi Nikrishta Upaditaya Malina Sattva Pradhana. So now try and compare, because now the next few are duplicates of what we have already seen. How this exact mechanism that was described for Ishvara will be described here for what is going to be called as Prajna. So the same association of consciousness with ignorance or Maya, the Ajnana and Brahma, at a cosmic level gave it a name, Ishvara. At an individual level, the same association of Brahma and Ajnana will give it a name called Prajna. That is the Vyashti. Now, unlike the cosmic ignorance, which had the benefit of directly being associated with the all-pervading Brahman, the Ishvara has this Vishuddha Sattva, the pure sattvic state. Whereas for the individuals, it is not so. It is a Malina Sattva. Malina Sattva is a dirty. Malina is dirty or impure. So it is the impure Sattva state which is being attributed to this Vyashti. Okay, that is what is meant there. Etad upahitam chaitanyam alpajnatvam anishvaratvadi gunakam prajna iti uchyate eka ajnana avabhasakatvat. Eka ajnana avabhasakatvat. So same again, upahitam means association. Chaitanyam, etad chaitanyam, this chaitanyam, this radiance, having been associated with this ignorance or the ajnanam. is different because it is alpagnyatvam. It is not the same as sarvaniyantratvam, all controlling. That was all controlling, the Ishvara. This one has no controlling ability. Anishwaratvam. It is not, that was a lord. Sarveshwaratvam. It was a lord of everything. This one has no lordship whatsoever. Ityadi gunakam prajna iti. So therefore this one is being given a name prajna. It has only that ability to give radiance to that inert matter that it is being associated with, which is the body, which is the sense organs, and the mind. That's it. It is only able to give radiance to this one entity itself. So, ekajnana avabhasakatvat. That's all. So, therefore, it is called prajna. There is some explanation there which is useful. We should see. Mandukya Upanishad, it says here, there are 3 states of the jiva. One is a wakeful state. Second is a dreaming sleep state. Third is a dreamless sleep state. And there's a fourth which is beyond all these 3, which is nothing but the absolute consciousness or the Brahman. So first one, that is the waking state, is called Vishwa. Second, the dreaming sleep state is called Taijasa. And the third, which is the dreamless sleep state, is being called Prajna, according to the Mandukya Upanishad. And then the one which is beyond all these 3 states and is the absolute Brahman is called Turiya. So these Prajna and Turiya will be covered later on. Asya Prajnatvam aspashta upadhitaya anatiprakashakatvat. What's happening here is that this Prajna, unlike the Ishvara, is associated with aspashta upadhi. Upadhi is like a material cause. Aspashta, there is no spashtata, there is no kind of clarity in it. So therefore it's being written here as dull limiting adjunct. So spashtata means clarity, aspashtata means no clarity. So that's the level of this ignorance. It is also, even the ignorance is of a very poor quality compared to the ignorance of the Ishvara. This one is of a poor quality. And as a result of it, it doesn't radiate. It doesn't radiate at all, or it doesn't radiate much. And then, asya api ayam ahankaradi karanatvat karana shariram ananda prachuratvat koshavat achadakatvat cha anandamaya koshaha sarvoparamatvat sushuptihi iti eva sthula sukshma sharira prapancha layasthanam iti cha uchyate. So exactly the same we have already seen. So therefore makes your job easy, nothing new to learn, which is that just as Ishvara, because it was the causal agent for everything, was called Karana Sharira. In here, Prajna, although it doesn't have that ability to create everything, the very idea that it came into existence, the very ego, that one unit, Ahankara, I am, that in itself led to it being called as a Karana Sharira. It became a cause on its own for itself. So it is a Karana Sharira, it's a causal body. Then, similar to the Ishvara, it can lead to bliss, and there is a sheath. It is a sheath because of the ignorance. And for these two reasons, it is called Anandamaya Kosha. And similar to Ishvara, it is also called Sushupti because Sarvoparamatvat, everything dissolves into it. What dissolves into it? Not any material manifestation around us. Our sleep state. When we go into the sleep state, every memory, everything just dissolves into it. Sthula, Sukshma, Sharira, Prapancha. Everything that appeared gross and subtle in that sleep state is obviously all dissolving into it. That is as much as it is, at least as per my understanding. So what is being said here is in English, it is further known as dreamless sleep, since into it everything is dissolved. And for this reason, it is also designated as the state of dissolution of the gross and subtle phenomena. Okay. So very similar. The only difference is that in Ishvara, everything of the creation dissolves. Here for us, only our experiences in the gross and subtle state dissolve in a dreamless state. That's it. Okay. So then Tadanim etau Ishvara Prajnau Chaitanya Pradiptabhihi Ati Sukshmabhihi Ajnana Vruttibihi Anandam Anubhavataha Anandabhuk Chetomukha Prajnyaha Iti Shrutehe Sukham Aham Aswapsam Na Kinchid Avedisham Iti Uttitasya Paramarshopapattescha. Okay. So Tadanim, thereafter, these two, Ishvara Prajnau, Etau, Ishvara Prajnau, these two, Ishvara and Prajna, Chaitanya Pradiptabhihi, with their ability to cause radiance or give that ability to, well, radiate with knowledge, let us say. Ati Sukshmabhihi, the subtle, with that subtle nature of this radiance. Ajnana Vruttibihi, Ajnana Vruttibihi Anandam Anubhavataha. Okay. I think I'll just need to see the description here. Just a minute. Through a very subtle function of ignorance, illumined by consciousness, enjoy happiness in the state of dreamless sleep. Okay. Okay. So it's a continuation of the earlier, because in this Sushupti state, so basically they're referring to this Sushupti state where there is that radiance, but because of its subtle nature of the ignorance itself, irrespective of whether it is Ishvara or Prajna, whether it is the individual entity or the cosmic entity, both of them have the capacity to experience bliss in that dreamless sleep state. So naturally, we can relate to it in our own lives. Even if somebody has terrible problems in their life, once they reach that state of sleep when nothing is known, that is a state of bliss, irrespective of what troubles. They may wake up suddenly realizing, oh God, nothing has changed. I still have problems in my life. I'll have to deal with them. But in the dreamless sleep state, what is being said here is because of their ability to cause radiance, there is that level of happiness that can be experienced in that dreamless sleep state, Sushupti. And a reference is being given here. Ananda Bhuk, the one who is able to enjoy that bliss. Cheto Mukha Prajnaha. So that prajna, the enjoyer of bliss, that person, that one individual entity, is being able to do so because of its association with that conscious state. And then another example given, Sukham aham aswapsam. You know what? I slept happily. Sukham aham aswapsam. Na kinchid avedisham. I did not know anything at all. I slept so happily. Iti uttithasya paramarshaha paramarshopapattescha. Thus says the person who got up from sleep, and he says this. He got up from sleep and says, "Oh, what a great sleep I had. I didn't really know anything at all. Time just flew. I slept happily." So therefore, that is giving us an indication, Sadananda says through Vedantasara, that gives us an indication that there is definitely that underlying consciousness, which is the reason why we are existing, or in a sense, existence is not the right word in that sense, but pure existence, which is Sat Chit Anandam, that is that pure existence, and that is the bliss, and therefore I am able to experience that blissful state in my dreamless sleep. Okay, so then there is some important text as well here in the explanations. Sushupti kale sakale viline tamo abhibhutaha sukha sukharupam aiti. In dreamless sleep, when everything is absorbed, the jiva, overpowered by ignorance, attains the state of happiness. So same is being described here, but in reference to some other Upanishad called Kaivalya Upanishad. Sushupti Kale, in that state of dreamless sleep, Sakale Viline, having everything having dissolved, Tamaha Abhibhutaha, there is still obviously the state of ignorance, because we are in that state of ignorance. Tamaha, darkness or ignorance. Abhibhutaha. Sukharupam aiti. I experience that state of bliss once everything dissolves, because there is the underlying Brahman in that. And very interestingly, it says next, Jiva derives his perception in all states, whether it is wakeful state, dream state, or dreamless sleep state, whatever be the state, Jiva or the individual is only able to perceive this bliss because of the consciousness of the Brahman only, which is the essence of Atman, is what is being said here. So that bliss can't be experienced for any other reason apart from the very idea that I am the Brahman. If I'm not the Brahman, if I am just the material manifestation, I won't be able to experience that bliss, is what we need to infer from that. We'll do two more texts and then we will stop. Okay, so Anayoho Samashti Vyashtyoho Vanavrukshayoho Iva Jalashaya Jalayoho Iva Va Abedaha. Abedaha means no difference. Bedaha means difference. Abedaha, no difference. There is no difference, he says, in what? There is no difference between Vana and Vruksha, as in whether you call it, whether it is a collective unit of trees to be called as a Vana, forest, or whether it is the individual tree there is no difference, it says. Similarly, there is no difference between a water droplet and the water body. Similarly, there is no difference between the Ishvara and the Prajna. Both are the same. And that is again a very fundamental point we need to remember through Vedanta or Advaita Siddhanta, because ultimately we're going to come to this conclusion that I am Brahman, everything around is Brahman, I am the same as the Brahman. There is no difference. This is what we are going to come to infer at the end of this book. एतत् उपहितयोः ईश्वरप्राज्ञयोः अपि वनवृक्षावच्छिन्नाकाशयोः इव जलाशय जलगत प्रतिबिम्बाकाशयोः इव अभेदः. శ్రీలక్ష్మి గారు మీటింగ్ మొదలు పెడతాము ఒక పావు గంటలో, ఓకేనా? ఓకే, సో ఏతద్ ఉపహితయోః ఈశ్వర ప్రాజ్ఞయోః అపి వనవృక్షావచ్ఛిన్నాకాశయోః జలాశయ జలగత ప్రతిబింబాకాశయోః ఇవ వ అభేదః. ఏష సర్వేశ్వర ఏష సర్వజ్ఞః ఏషః అంతర్యామి ఏషః యోనిః సర్వస్య ప్రభవాప్యయౌ హి భూతానాం ఇత్యాది శ్రుతేః. Okay, so in this fashion, having been associated etat upahitayoho, of both of them, it is a dual case. Upahitayoho of these two which have been associated. Which are those two? Ishvara and Prajna. Vana vrukshavachinna akashayoho. He's bringing that concept we have seen earlier, I think, which is, you see the unlimited sky. Whether it is in relation to one individual tree or whether it is in relation to the entire forest, it is this, qualitatively the sky is the same. There is no difference. So whether it is covering one tree or whether it is covering the entire forest, qualitatively there is no difference whatsoever in the akasha or the sky. Similarly, the very sky which reflects in each droplet and that sky which reflects in the entire water body is the same as well. No difference. Similarly, the consciousness or the Brahman which is resulting in that radiance in that individual self or the cosmic self is the same. There is no difference. And therefore it is being called no abheda, no difference. Eshaha sarveshwaraha, he is the Lord of everything. Eshaha sarvajnaha, he is the all-knower. Eshaha antaryami, he is the inner guide. Eshaha yonihi, he is the one who has led to the manifestation. Sarvasya prabhava apyayau. We see this expression in Bhagavad Gita as well. Prabhava apyaya. Prabhava means creation, outflow. Apyaya is the involution or the dissolution or the laya. Srishti and laya. So for everyone, this is happening. He is the, for everything, sarvasya, for every of everyone's creation and everyone's dissolution, he is the reason. He bhutanam, of the all the creatures. Ityadi shrutehe. So this is as much as we have covered today. I think it will be, we can close by now if it is okay. Yeah. Any questions before we close? How is it? How was it today? A little more interesting, I hope, because we were talking about a few different things.
I'm a little bit confused.
Because you missed all the previous classes. So,
Yes.
so it will be
I
important.
need to know whether this is the word vestive or submistive.
Hmm? Your
How we
line
should
is not
see the
very
word
clear.
vestive.
Veshti Samishti?
How we should vesti rupena va samishti rupena va. How should we say the word?
Bhavataha Shariram. Your body is Veshti. You are as an individual, as Sairam is a Vyashti individual. And the aggregate of all of us, which is the reason for creation, is the Samashti. That is the difference. Okay. So we'll draw this to a close for today. All right. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkhabad bhaved. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll meet up next Saturday again. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.